This first encounter comes from a woman named Claire, who shared her story on a travel blog in 2014. She was in her late 20s, a freelance photographer based in Seattle, and she often took solo road trips to capture landscapes for her work. That fall, she planned a drive down the Pacific Coast Highway from Washington to California, looking for those misty ocean views and rugged cliffs that made for stunning shots. The route was known for its breathtaking beauty, but also its isolation. Long stretches with no cell service, twisting roads hugging the sea, and foggy nights that could turn treacherous and disorienting. Claire had done similar trips before, so she felt prepared. She packed her professional camera gear, extra batteries, a sturdy tripod, some camping supplies like a tent and sleeping bag for beach stops, a thermos of strong coffee, and her reliable hatchback car equipped with a full tank and emergency kit. As she left home early one morning, the sky was overcast with a light drizzle, the air crisp with the scent of salt from the nearby sound and pine from the evergreens lining the streets. She felt that familiar thrill of adventure kicking in, the open road calling her away from the city's constant hustle, promising solitude and inspiration. Rolling down the window slightly, she breathed in deeply, the wind carrying hints of upcoming rain, and hit play on her road trip playlist. Soft, acoustic tracks to match the moody weather. The first day unfolded like a dream for any photographer. She stopped frequently at scenic pullouts, setting up her camera to capture the dramatic coastline where waves crashed against jagged rocks, sending up sprays of white foam that glistened in the diffused light. The ocean was a deep, restless, blue-gray under the cloudy sky, seagulls wheeling and crying overhead, their calls echoing off the cliffs. Claire lost track of time framing shots, adjusting lenses to catch the perfect angle of sunlight breaking through clouds. She munched on trail mix and apples from her cooler, the salty sea air mixing with the sweet fruit, invigorating her. By late afternoon, she had reached a more remote section in northern Oregon, where the highway narrowed significantly, cliffs rising steeply on one side and dropping sharply to the turbulent sea on the other. Towns became sparse, just occasional fishing villages with weathered docks, and a few locals giving her nods as she passed. The air grew heavier with moisture, a prelude to the evening fog that often blanketed this stretch, and Claire considered finding a spot to camp soon. But the light was perfect for a few more photos, so she pressed on, the road twisting like a serpent, her car hugging the curves with the ocean's roar, a constant companion below. As dusk fell, the fog began rolling, in thick from the ocean, like a living entity swallowing the landscape, reducing visibility to a few dozen feet. Claire switched on her headlights, the beams diffusing into a hazy glow, and slowed her speed, the wipers swiping intermittently at the mist collecting on the windshield. The road felt lonelier now, no other cars in sight for miles. The only sounds the hum of her engine, the occasional splash of waves far below, and the faint creak of her tires on the damp pavement. She sipped from her thermos, the coffee now lukewarm but still caffeinated enough to keep her alert. It was around 8 p.m., with full darkness setting in, when she first noticed a pair of headlights appear in her rearview mirror, far back but steady, cutting through the fog like distant eyes. At first, it was almost comforting to see another traveler sharing the treacherous road, a reminder she wasn't completely alone in this misty void. But as the minutes ticked by, turning into half an hour, the lights didn't get closer or fall away. They just maintained the exact distance, matching her every twist and turn on the winding highway. Claire adjusted her rearview mirror, squinting, to make out more details, but the fog obscured everything, leaving just the persistent glow. She sped up a bit, testing the waters, her heart beating a little faster as the speedometer climbed. The lights kept perfect pace, neither gaining nor lagging. She slowed down, dropping to below the limit. And again, the follower adjusted seamlessly. An uneasy feeling started bubbling in her stomach, like butterflies turning into something sour and heavy. Probably just someone being cautious in this fog, she told herself aloud, but her voice sounded thin and unconvincing in the confined space of the car, echoing slightly off the windows. The air inside grew cooler, the heater struggling against the damp mist seeping through the seals, and she turned up the fan, the warm air carrying a faint salty tang from the ocean. Tension began to build slowly, insidiously. Around 9 p.m., the following car flashed its high beams once, brightly and suddenly, piercing the fog and blinding her in the mirror for a split second. Claire's heart jumped, her hands tightening on the wheel as she blinked away the spots in her vision. Was it a signal for help? Or something else? She flashed her own high beams back in response, but there was no acknowledgement, just the steady pursuit continuing. Minutes later, it happened again. High beams on, then off, like a code she couldn't decipher. Now, the car seemed a bit closer, its shape vaguely discernible as a sedan similar to hers, but details lost in the swirling mist. The fog thickened further, wrapping around her car like a shroud, reducing her world to the narrow beam of her, headlights reflecting back at her, and the ominous glow trailing behind. There were no exits or pullouts for miles, just the relentless cliffside road, the drop to the ocean invisible but palpably felt in the darkness, the crash of waves, a distant, ominous rumble below. Claire's mind started racing with possibilities. A driver in distress trying to flag her down, or perhaps someone with more sinister intentions, like the stories she'd heard of carjackers preying on lone travelers. She tried her phone again, hoping for a signal to call a friend or emergency services, but the bars remained stubbornly absent, the screen's glow mocking her isolation in the dim cab. The playlist song ended, leaving silence broken only by the engine and her quickening breaths. Around 10 p.m., the follower closed in even more, tailing dangerously close, its engine noise audible over hers through the closed windows. In a brief, clear patch of fog, she glimpsed the driver in her mirror, a silhouette, face obscured by shadow, but staring straight ahead with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. Panic rose steadily, her breaths coming short and shallow, the salty taste of the fog somehow in her mouth despite the sealed car, her hands clammy on the wheel. She accelerated, pushing the car to hug the curves tighter, tires squealing faintly on the wet pavement as she navigated the twists. The follower matched every move, even bumping her rear bumper lightly once, a jolt that made her swerve and gasp, adrenaline flooding her system. "What do you want from me?" she screamed into the empty car, tears blurring her vision as the fog seemed to press in closer. Then, her radio, tuned to a static-filled station, crackled to life with a voice. "Stop the car!" It repeated, mechanical and chilling, "Stop now." Claire smacked the radio off, but it persisted, the voice echoing in the confined space. Terror peaked as the chase intensified through the foggy night, the road a treacherous ribbon along the cliffs, her heart pounding in her ears. Finally, she spotted a faint light ahead, a small coastal motel emerging from the mist. She veered into the parking lot, skidding to a stop under the neon sign, horn blaring for attention. The following car slowed at the entrance, hesitated, then accelerated away, vanishing into the fog like a ghost. Shaking uncontrollably, Claire checked into the motel, barricading the door, but sleep evaded her, every creak sounding like approaching footsteps. The twist came weeks later, when Claire was back home, sorting through her trip photos. In several shots from pullouts that day, a distant car appeared in the background, the same sedan, as if it had been following her from the start. Researching online, she found local legends of a ghostly driver, a victim of a fatal crash on that highway decades ago, who lures lone travelers into the fog to share his eternal misty fate. Claire still drives the coast for work, but never at night. And on foggy days, she swears she sees those headlights in her mirror again, waiting to resume the pursuit. Our second encounter is from a man named Tom, who recounted it in a podcast in 2017. He was a long-haul truck driver in his 40s, based out of Dallas, accustomed to the rhythm of the road, endless hours behind the wheel, stopping at truck stops for greasy meals and quick naps. The cab, his home away from home. This particular trip was a routine freight run from Texas to Arizona, hauling electronics through the Southwest on I-10, a highway he knew like the back of his hand. It was midwinter, with hot days giving way to chilly nights in the desert, the kind where the temperature drops fast and the stars shine brilliantly overhead. Tom loaded up his big rig at the warehouse, checking the manifest, fueling up, and stocking his cooler with energy drinks, jerky, and black coffee to keep alert. As he pulled out in the late evening, the sun was setting in a blaze of red over the flatlands, the air dry and crisp, carrying the faint scent of creosote bushes and dust. He liked starting at night to avoid daytime heat and traffic, settling in with an audiobook on true crime, ironic, in hindsight, the engine's steady rumble, a comforting constant. The first few hours were uneventful. Crossing into New Mexico as darkness fully set in, the highway stretching straight and empty, occasional semis passing with a whoosh, their lights flashing briefly. Tom sipped his coffee, the bitter taste keeping him sharp, the audiobook narrator's voice filling the cab with tales of unsolved mysteries. The desert landscape was barren, dotted with scrub brush and distant mountains silhouetted against the starry sky, the air cooling rapidly as he cracked the window for fresh breeze. Around 10 p.m., he passed a rest area, considering a stop but deciding to push on, his rig's headlights illuminating the white lines and reflective mile markers. It was peaceful, the kind of night drive where your mind wanders, reflecting on life. Though family he saw too little of, the years on the road adding up. Around 11 p.m., deep in the desert where cell towers were scarce and the road felt like it went on forever, Tom spotted a figure on the shoulder up ahead, a hitchhiker standing with thumb out, a backpack slung at his feet under the faint moonlight. He looked young, maybe 20s, dressed in a plain hoodie and jeans, unremarkable in the dark. Tom usually didn't pick up hitchhikers, too many risks, but something about the guy's isolated spot, miles from anywhere, tugged at him. Against his better judgment, he slowed the rig, air brakes hissing loudly in the quiet night, and rolled down the passenger window. "Where are you headed?" Tom asked, engine idling. The guy looked up, face pale in the cab light. "West, as far as you can. Take me." His voice was calm, almost too steady for someone stranded. Tom unlocked the door. "Hop in, but no funny business." The hitchhiker climbed up, settling in with his backpack, the cab immediately feeling a bit colder, Tom cranking the heat without thinking. They chatted lightly at first, Tom asking where he was from. The guy, who said his name was Jack, replying, vaguely, "Around, traveling mostly." He didn't elaborate, his eyes reflecting the dashboard lights in an odd, glassy way. The conversation flowed okay, Jack asking about Tom's roots. But there was an undercurrent, something off that Tom couldn't pinpoint. The desert outside was pitch black now, no lights from towns, The stars a brilliant canopy but distant and cold. As they drove, the cab's temperature seemed to drop further. Tom's breath visible slightly, though the heater was blasting. Jack's questions turned personal. "You miss your kid? What's his name again, Tommy?" Tom froze. "How'd you know that? I didn't mention him." Jack smiled faintly. "Just a guess. You look like a family man." But it didn't sit right. The air in the cab growing heavy. The audiobook paused, silence amplifying the engine's rumble. Around midnight, Jack suggested stopping for a smoke break. Tom spotted a rest area sign and pulled in, the lot empty under a single dim lamp, gravel crunching under the tires. "Be quick," Tom said, staying in the cab. Jack stepped out, lighting a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating his face, paler than before. Eyes shadowed. Tom glanced away for a moment, checking his logbook. But when he looked back, Jack was gone. No trace, the cigarette still smoldering on the ground, backpack left on the seat. "Jack!" Tom called, stepping out, flashlight sweeping the lot. Nothing but desert scrub and darkness. No footsteps in the dust, no sound. Confused and unsettled, Tom searched around the rig, the beam cutting through the night, sand shifting under. His boots, the air biting cold. No sign of him. Back in the cab, heart beating faster, Tom opened the backpack cautiously. Inside, no clothes or supplies, just old faded photos of a family from the 1980s, yellowed with age, and a newspaper clipping about a hitchhiker murdered on that very stretch of I-10 30 years ago, body never found. Chills ran down Tom's spine, the cab feeling icy, his breaths short. He tossed the bag out and drove off fast, but glances in the side mirrors showed a faint figure in the passenger seat, fading in and out like a reflection. The twist came later. When Tom researched the clipping, the murdered hitchhiker matched Jack's description perfectly, down to the hoodie. Locals spoke of his spirit hitching rides, revealing himself to drivers as a warning or a haunt, sharing his tragic fate. Tom quit trucking soon after, but on quiet nights, he still hears a voice on his home radio, asking for a lift west, the cold seeping in. This third story is from a couple, Alex and Jordan, who shared it on Reddit in 2019. They were in their early 30s, living in Boston, and decided to celebrate their 5th anniversary with a road trip to Montreal, a city they'd always wanted to visit for its charm and food scene. It was early autumn, the leaves turning vibrant shades of red and orange, the air fresh with the scent of fallen foliage and crisp apples. They rented a comfortable sedan, packing light, some wine for toasts, a picnic basket with cheeses and bread for stops, cozy sweaters for cooler evenings, and a road map for the scenic back roads through Vermont, avoiding the busy interstates for a more romantic drive. Leaving Boston in the morning, they held hands across the console, chatting about their relationship milestones, the city giving way to rolling hills and quaint towns, the sun filtering through colorful canopies. They stopped for lunch at a roadside cafe, savoring hot cider and sandwiches, the trip feeling like a second honeymoon. The drive was idyllic, winding through Vermont's countryside, pulling over for photos of covered bridges and leaf-strewn paths, the air alive with the rustle of falling leaves. As evening approached, the sky darkened with clouds, a light fog settling in the valleys, but they pressed on, excited for Montreal's lights. Around 8 p.m., navigating a foggy mountain road, the headlights struggling against the mist, they spotted a woman on the shoulder, waving frantically for help. She was dressed in old-fashioned clothes, a long coat and skirt, soaked as if from rain, though the weather was dry. Alex slowed the car. "She looks like she needs help." Jordan agreed, and they pulled over, the gravel crunching under tires. The woman approached, pale and shivering, her hair matted, eyes wide. "My car broke down up the road. Can you give me a ride to town?" Her voice soft, almost whispering. Feeling sympathetic, they let her in the back seat, the car filling with a musty, wet smell like old rain and earth. "Thank you," she said, settling in, water dripping from her clothes onto the seats. They drove on, the fog thickening, the woman quiet at first, only giving directions in a monotone voice. "Turn left here, straight ahead." Alex tried small talk. "What happened to your car?" She replied vaguely, "It just stopped. Like time did." Jordan exchanged a glance with Alex, a slight unease settling in, the air in the car turning colder, their breaths visible faintly. The woman started whispering about a crash long ago. "The road took me. It takes everyone eventually." The couple felt chills, the fog outside pressing against the windows like a barrier, the headlights barely penetrating. The woman's presence felt heavier, the musty smell intensifying, and Jordan noticed her reflection in the mirror looked faded, almost transparent. Around 9 p.m., they arrived at the address she gave. A small, overgrown cemetery on the outskirts of a town, gates rusted and ajar. "This is it," she said. When they turned to let her out, the back seat was empty, door still locked, only a puddle of water remaining. Shocked, hearts pounding, they sped away, the fog lifting as if by magic. At their hotel, they researched frantically. The woman matched. Descriptions of a ghost from a 1950s car accident on that road, who hitches rides to her grave, appearing to couples as a harbinger. The twist? Back home, they found her locket in the car, engraved with a date from the 50s, and now, on foggy drives, they see her in the rearview mirror, whispering anniversaries, as if joining their celebrations forever. The fourth encounter comes from friends Mike and Dave, who told it in a 2021 video. They were in their late 20s, buddies from college, heading from LA to Vegas for a weekend of gambling and shows, taking a shortcut through the Mojave Desert to beat the traffic. It was a hot summer night, the kind where the heat lingers, and they loaded Mike's Jeep with beers, chips, and high spirits, blasting rock music as they left the city lights behind. The desert highway was straight and barren, stars twinkling above, the air dry with the scent of creosote and warm sand. They joked about hitting jackpots, the road empty, their laughter echoing in the open Jeep. Around midnight, after hours of driving, they noticed something odd. The same mile marker passing again, the landscape repeating like a loop. "Did we miss a turn?" Dave asked, checking the GPS, but it spun endlessly. Time on the clock stuck at 1:15, no matter how far they drove. Panic set in slowly, the music cutting to static, whispers emerging. "Turn back. You're lost." The desert seemed to close in, shadows shifting unnaturally under the moon. They tried turning around, but ended up at the same spot, the whispers growing louder, voices of lost travelers pleading. Apparitions appeared, faint figures walking, the road, vanishing when approached. After what felt like hours but the clock unchanged, they stopped the Jeep, got out, and walked backward a few steps. The loop broke, time resuming. The twist? Their GPS logged extra miles that didn't exist, and locals spoke of a cursed desert stretch where time warps trapped drivers, echoes of those who never escaped. Mike and Dave hear the whispers on drives, the clock sometimes freezing at 1:15. Our final story is from a driver named Lena, shared in a 2022 forum. She was on a cross-country trip from Florida to Texas, a solo journey to visit family, driving through the southern states at night to avoid daytime heat and traffic. The route took her through Louisiana's bayou country, swampy roads lined with moss-draped trees and murky waters. Lena was in her 30s, a teacher, and packed her sedan with books on tape, water bottles, and snacks. The air conditioning blasting against the humid night. Starting after sunset, the highway was quiet, fireflies flickering in the distance, the air thick with the scent of wetlands and night-blooming flowers. Around 11 p.m., on a foggy bayou road, her radio tuned to a local station for company, but it faded to static. Voices emerged from the noise, clear, predicting events. Deer crossing ahead. Moments later, a deer bounded across, Lena swerving to avoid it. Shaken, she changed stations, but the voices persisted, now personal. Lena, slow down, curve coming. The road curved sharply, as said. The voices turned ominous, knowing secrets like her childhood fears, urging, pull over, rest here. Terrified, Lena sped up, seeing apparitions, ghostly figures on the road, arms outstretched. She made it to a town, the radio silencing. The twist? The station was off air for years, shut down after a flood that drowned locals, their spirits, said to broadcast warnings or lures from the beyond. Lena still hears predictions on her car radio, debating if they're saving her or drawing her back to the bayou. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.